Thank you so much to Dan Griffith and Essential Education for sponsoring this session and for donating 10 Chromebooks to our program at Georgia Piedmont Technical College to continue to help reach learners who might not otherwise have access to the technology needed to learn from a distance. We began using Essential Education's products, COABE and GED Academy, about a year ago, and our teachers and students love it. We use it for a variety of things. We use it to reinforce learning for students who need additional support, for extra tutoring and practice for students who missed instruction or who cannot attend classes, and they can use the product at their convenience. Sometimes, even when students pre-test on the tape, the results aren't accurate. Maybe they had test fatigue or test anxiety. So our teachers like to use the leveled test in the product to determine where students are and to help inform instruction. We're really excited to be using COABE Academy and GED Academy in our largest correctional facility. We're going to use it to supplement a distance learning program in our IET. Now, although I do manage a large adult education program in Metro Atlanta, I'm not here to talk about these unprecedented times or pivoting to remote learning. Today, I'm here to talk about something that will never change with regard to adult education, even in the midst of a pandemic, and that is its transformational power. I love the quote that Dan used from Booker T. Washington in his remarks about overcoming obstacles. As a reminder, he said, "I have learned that success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has overcome while trying to succeed." The story that I'm sharing with you today exemplifies that point. I believe that you will find that my success is remarkable, not because of where I am, but because of the obstacles I overcame to get here. So I'm going to take you back about 22 years. I'll cut out most of my childhood, but I'll frame it in this way. I was the child of a single father. My mother and I had been estranged since I was a young girl because of her severe mental health issues. So I was raised by a single father, and about the time they got divorced, my life kind of took a turn for the worse. So aside from some behavior issues that started right after my parents' divorce when I was in the 8th grade, I progressed relatively normally through school. I was a very high achieving student. I was in a gifted program throughout elementary and middle school, but that all changed in my first semester of high school. When I was 14 years old, I got pregnant. Immediately, school became the least of my concerns. I was shocked, terrified, embarrassed, traumatized, so much so that I was in denial about my pregnancy for a long time. In fact, I never received any prenatal care during my entire pregnancy. Nonetheless, I carried my baby to term. Instead of starting my second year of high school, I delivered my first child, a healthy baby boy who I named Jacob, 6 weeks after I turned 15 years old. And here is an image of me and Jacob. This is just a few hours after he was born. My family and friends, they were all surprised that I had just had a baby. They suggested that I give him up for adoption. My situation did not look promising for raising a baby. I was still very much a child myself. You can see it in my face there. I was living in a less than ideal situation. My mother and I were estranged. My boyfriend, who was the father of my child, was in jail. I had no family support outside of my father. So I made the decision to raise my child myself, despite all that I had going on. And at that moment, my identity became that of a teenage mother. Never again would anyone refer to me as normal or traditional. I was an exception. I was a statistic. 3/4 of teen births are to mothers who are 18 or 19 years old. So becoming a mother at 15 years old is statistically unusual. I delivered my son at 11:38 p.m. First thing the next morning, bright and early, a Child Protective Services investigator was in my hospital room, and she became a regular presence in my life for about the next 3 years. At the time, dealing with her was a nightmare. Having a CPS case felt like an invasion of my privacy. I was rarely cooperative with her because to me, she was intruding. In retrospect, I appreciate her presence because she connected me with a network of resources and services that truly lifted me up and helped me get out of the hole that I had dug for myself. Being pregnant for half of my first year of high school caused me to get really behind in school. I couldn't focus. I missed my first period class almost every day because of morning sickness. When I was in class, I couldn't concentrate because I was embarrassed that I was pregnant and terrified of what might happen if I went into labor. Strangely, I never really thought about the fact that an actual baby was going to come from all this. Then, as I mentioned, instead of starting my second year of school, I delivered a child. I was too young to drop out, so I had to make other arrangements. After doing hospital homebound for a while, I returned to high school in an alternative setting. So I went to school at night and I kept my baby during the day. Here's a picture of my son and I. I was working on a school project and he was a toddler. He was always nearby when I was doing my schoolwork. But I was miserable in the alternative school. I didn't have any friends, and it was a militaristic structure that prevented me from socializing. I couldn't spend the night at my friends' houses because I had an infant, and their parents wouldn't let them spend the night with me. I guess they thought having a baby may be contagious. So at any rate, I missed out on my entire adolescence. I didn't get to participate in extracurricular activities. I didn't get to go to football games, proms, anything, because I was a young mother. As if being a teen mom wasn't hard enough, I soon further complicated my life. By the time I turned 16, I was expecting another child. Here is a photo of me. You can see I'm holding my first son, and I'm pregnant with my second. It was around Christmas, so I was probably about 8.5 months pregnant there. And that was the tipping point for me. It was difficult enough being a parent in high school, but to go through it all over again while repeating classes that I failed in the 9th grade was overwhelming. So at 16 years old, I dropped out of high school having never finished the 9th grade. I was already embarrassed by being such a young teenage mother, and it was made worse by their father being in jail, being in and out of jail, and then multiplied by me dropping out of school. Everyone around me had lost any shred of hope they had for me. My family was so disappointed. I was disappointed in myself. Pretty much on my own, I'd created a mountain of barriers and obstacles for myself. I didn't know how to get around them. And soon I realized I might have created a lot of trouble for my children as well. Children of teenage mothers are more likely to drop out of school themselves, be incarcerated, become teen parents, and live in poverty. My children were more likely to have poorer educational, behavioral, and health outcomes born to children of older and wealthier parents. I was keenly aware of these outcomes. My children's outcomes were poorer than those of others, and I felt really guilty because I had done that. In my mind, I had to do something, or my kids were going to wind up in prison. It was that black and white to me. So I decided to pursue some training so that I could get a job. I knew I couldn't change the fact that I was a young mother, but I could change where we were. And I felt like that might give me some redemption for all the people who were convinced that I had ruined my life. So I soon realized there's not much work out there for a 17-year-old single mother of 2 who has dropped out of high school. So first, I needed a GED. I knew my local technical college could help me, so I got a ride to Southern Regional Technical College in my hometown of Moultrie, Georgia, and asked for help. I needed remediation in math, as many of our students often do, in order to pass the GED exam. So I took classes for a little while until my teachers and I felt confident that I could pass the test. On December 18th, 2000, I passed the GED exam. 9 days later, I delivered my second child. I was 17 years old. Here's a picture of me in labor, and then a picture of me the next day after I had my second baby at 17. I was so proud of myself for earning my GED before I would have even graduated from high school, but no one celebrated with me. It was so unimportant and unimpressive to anyone that not a single person came to support me at my GED graduation. People always joked that GED stood for Good Enough Diploma, and that's what I had. For the next few months, I adjusted to being a single 17-year-old mother of 2 children. There's me with my kids beside me on the bed. I didn't have a driver's license or a car. My children's father had recently been released from jail again, so I was navigating a lot of drama with that relationship. I knew for sure I wasn't going to let myself get pregnant again. I figured out what caused it, so I began planning for my future. In fact, in this picture where I was holding the baby, you can see me holding a planner. So I was planning out the next few months of my life. I knew I wanted to attend a university, but that seemed so far out of reach for me because I had not done hardly any high school. I also wanted to get out of my father's house and be able to meet mine and my children's basic needs. And to do that, I needed a job. But because I had no job-related skills, I decided to get some training. I didn't really even know what kind of work I wanted to do. But I went back to my local technical college, the one where I had earned my GED, flipped through the catalog, and chose a program that I felt like would match my skill set and my personality, and that was business administrative technology. In hindsight, enrolling in this credit program was a turning point in my life. The skills that I acquired, like typing and using Microsoft Office, transcription, document production, are all skills that I still use 20 years later. I also learned how to balance being a student and a parent, something that high schools are not designed for. Everything I wasn't able to do as a mother in high school, I was able to do at the technical college. I joined student organizations and even served as the president of one of them. I participated in and won business-related competitions across the region, state, and country. I was even nominated as the Student of the Year. My favorite teacher invited me to be her work study student. She treated me like her little teacher's aide, and it was that experience that led me to my career in education. My confidence as a student skyrocketed, and unbeknownst to me, my experience there would lead to what is now a 20-year career in education. Immediately after finishing my first 2 programs at Southern Regional, I was hired by a temp agency into a part-time customer service job, earning a whopping $6 an hour. It was the year 2000. It wasn't much, but I had to demonstrate typing proficiency, a skill that I had acquired in college, to access this job. I used my work ethics and job readiness skills that I'd learned at the college in the interview process and on the job. Soon, with my small paycheck, I was able to buy a cheap car and rent a subsidized apartment. DFACS paid for my childcare expenses, and without that assistance, I could not have afforded to work. I filled my pantry and refrigerator with groceries that I purchased with food stamps. Because I was earning very little money, my caseworker even arranged for my children to receive Christmas presents through donations. And to this day, I think about the times that my children's Christmas presents were donated, and I never take for granted my ability to buy them for them now. Eventually, my part-time job became full-time and permanent. I was promoted to a supervisor and got a salary, but I still was not satisfied. These are the times when MySpace and Facebook were coming around, and I got caught up in the trap of comparison. I saw my classmates going off to college on social media and enjoying all that comes along with being in college, and I felt left behind. So, feeling inadequate and wanting to remedy the damage I had caused, I was compelled to continue investing in my education. Having dropped out of high school, I still didn't feel ready for the university, so I took another baby step and enrolled at a junior college in a neighboring town. I struggled, understandably, at the junior college. I didn't know how to navigate things like course withdrawals, so I failed several classes that I could have withdrawn from had I known that was an option. I couldn't do college like the traditional students because I was still a young mother who was working full-time. I commuted 45 minutes each way to school every single day. I went to school full-time all 4 years I was in college. I attended classes from 8 a.m. to 12 every day and worked from 1 p.m. to midnight every night. I did my homework on my lunch breaks and on the weekends. I struggled, but I made it through. I completed an associate's degree and was ready to move on to the next level. I was still terrified to attend a university, but I had no other option if I were to finish what I started. Gaining access to a university once felt impossible, but I did it. And at 21 years old, mother to 6 and 3-year-old boys, I became a student at Valdosta State University in South Georgia to finish my bachelor's degree in education. Even though I felt like I was behind everyone else because of my background, I actually finished my bachelor's degree in 4 years. 99% of teenage mothers are unable to complete a bachelor's degree before they are 30 years old. I finished my degree when I was 23. There's a picture of me getting my bachelor's degree at Valdosta State. Next, after graduating from VSU, I taught high school, ironically teaching grades and classes that I had never made it to myself. What I really wanted, though, was a career in higher education. So next, I took action to access that. A year after completing my bachelor's degree, I started a master's program, again at VSU. This time I chose to study history, hoping that one day I could teach history at the college level. And I did. Here's a picture of me getting my master's degree. So I knew that there could be a glass ceiling in higher ed if I stopped with a master's degree. So next, I decided to pursue something that had before never seemed achievable. I applied for a doctoral program, again, at Valdosta State University. You see, the thing about non-traditional students is a lot of times we have to pick our colleges based on convenience. And Valdosta State was the only university that was within driving distance for me. So that's where I went for all three of my my bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees. So I was accepted into the doctoral program, and 4 years later, on July 24th, 2018, I was addressed for the first time as Dr. Meghan McBride. And the photo of me there smiling with one of my dissertation committee members is the day I defended. The same day, on July 24th, 2018, I was offered a position as Dean for Adult Education at Georgia Piedmont Technical College. I was completely overwhelmed with emotion that day. I was dean and doctor all at the same time. I didn't know which one to be excited about first. And 2 weeks later, after quickly relocating to Metro Atlanta, I stepped into a technical college system of Georgia school to serve as a dean. TCSG is the same system through which I had earned my GED, just one of our sister colleges. When I went to my first day of work on campus to manage what was the second largest adult education program in the state of Georgia, I was absolutely overwhelmed. I was confronted with this alphabet soup of acronyms, you know, all of them. I didn't understand anything anyone was saying to me in this foreign language. I felt like an imposter, like it was a mistake that someone had given me this job. I was afraid each morning when I went to work that someone would tap me on the shoulder and say, "We figured you out, you don't belong here." But much like TCSG did 20 years ago when I walked through the doors as a pregnant teenage mother and high school dropout, the system again loved me and supported me and wrapped their arms around me as I figured things out. And 23 months later, I'm still here and thriving. And in fact, 2 months ago, I was even promoted from dean to vice president, and I have been transformed. There's my son and I, you'll remember that picture when I was in the hospital with him, and there we are the day I got my doctorate degree. He's 21, almost 22 now. So in this transformation and throughout the years, I've thought a lot about identity and my identity. And as you know, identity is this incredible invisible force that controls your whole life. Our identities are how we're recognized and understood. And in terms of identities, I was at the intersection of multiple. I was a pregnant child. I was a teenage mother. I was a high school dropout. I was a GED graduate. And now I'm a 6-time college graduate. I'm now vice president at a college. I am actually a 36-year-old grandmother. So I have been made and remade continually over the years. Like Michelle Obama, I am becoming. Very little, perhaps nothing of me is original. I am the combined efforts of people like you who invested in me along the way. Again, Michelle Obama reminds us, when you've worked hard and done well and walked through that doorway of opportunity, you don't slam it shut behind you. You reach back and you give other folks the same chances that helped you succeed. So this is such an important reminder for me as I'm becoming. And I consider the work that I do now in adult education an opportunity for me to help people navigate obstacles in the same way that people helped me along the way. And part of that involves me living in my story like I'm doing now. For years, many, many years, I would lie and tell people that I graduated from high school. I actually have proof of that. Here is an article about me getting a scholarship when I was in my master's program. And when I had to submit the article or the news release or publication in my local paper, I wrote in there that I was a 2001 graduate of Colquitt County High School, where I should have graduated from. And this was as recently as 2010 or 11. So I lied about it for a long time. But now I proudly tell people that I'm a GED graduate. By having a doctoral degree, I hope I can change the way people think about those of us who have GEDs. I use my platform to share a powerful counter story to the dominant discourse on high school dropouts. As a former teenage mother and high school dropout, I now get to live in my story and change the narrative on what society thinks girls like me can and cannot do. The point I want to drive home today is that we all face obstacles. Some of those obstacles are ones that we create for ourselves, like many of those that I faced throughout my life. The harsh reality is that some people, including many of those who we serve in adult ed, and perhaps many of you who are watching me now, must overcome obstacles that you did not place in front of yourselves. so you may have to work twice as hard to reach your goals. The message that I want to share with those who have been counted out is this. Like I did when I was a high school dropout and teenage mother, you must believe in your ability when the world views you as less than. The world was ready to discard me and my children. No one believed that I could go on to do big things. But then I got an education, and no one has been able to take that from me. Education was the key that opened so many doors for me. With education, you have the ability to change the direction of this world and open doors that would otherwise be closed. That door cracked open for me the day I entered a GED program 20 years ago. If I had listened to all the forecasts that people had for me, I would have never experienced this transformation. Their predictions could have been a self-fulfilling prophecy. For people like me, people will tell us, they've told me, they'll tell you that you cannot achieve or make a positive impact on this world, maybe because of the color of your skin, your gender, where you're from, who your parents are, or like me, the mistakes you've made. But I am here to tell you that you can. I tell my students this all the time. When I was a 17-year-old high school dropout with 2 children, if I would have told someone that I would one day be a college vice president with 1 doctorate degree and working on a second, a PhD at the University of Georgia, they would have probably thought to themselves, she can't do that. They may have even laughed in my face. But I did it. Very few people were willing to bet on me when I was a teenager. But now, when I tell people that I want to be a college president, they believe in me and they encourage me. I hope that my story has been inspiring for you as professionals in the field of adult education, or perhaps on a personal level if you face obstacles in your paths. As you journey through life, career, or education, you'll certainly find obstacles in your path, whether you put them there, like I did to myself, or someone else does. Statistics showed that I had seemingly insurmountable obstacles to overcome, but I overcame them by continually investing in my education and my career and receiving help whenever and wherever possible. Can those of us with self-imposed or socially imposed obstacles overcome them? To answer, I borrow from Barack Obama. Sí se puede. Yes, we can. Thank you.